All right. McCormick brothers are back.
All right.
Coming at you with another podcast, kind of different feel for today.
We talk about real estate half the time we hang out anyway, so might as well point a camera at it.
Yeah. Document, give you all the juicy details, give you some value today.
So actually, I'd like to just get right into it and ask, I need an update personally. Tom went over to our Detroit flip today, and I couldn't make it. We were doing whatever other holiday things happen. So yeah, where is that at? I haven't seen that since our last drive-by.
Good question. So as of today, it's actually the day before New Year's, or December 30th, I should say, New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
Eve.
That's the technical term.
And we got this flip here back in November, end of November, for $75,000 US.
Mhm.
And like Robert said, it's just in Detroit. So it's just, honestly, we're 5 minutes from the tunnel right now. Robert, you can see the Renaissance Center from your house. Like,
Yeah.
we are very close to Detroit here in Windsor, Ontario.
Yeah.
So it's convenient. It's easy to pop over and check on projects, things, and kind of manage things instead of investing from afar. We do that too, but it's nicer to do things in your backyard kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime.
So then I guess what's been happening so far is we've turned on the gas, we've turned on the power, we've got our quotes in, we've got our contractor actually working as we speak.
Yep.
Shout out to Chris, he's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's giving us updates all the time too, which is huge.
That's great. Like you need somebody who's going to be communicative. We've said that a million times, but otherwise, you're in the dark, and if something goes wrong, like time's of the essence, you need to get on that right away. So you need them to be telling you what's going on, or otherwise you're paranoid going to visit way too often. That kind of defeats the purpose of having somebody else doing the work.
That's a great point. And then we've learned in the past, we got to hire fast and fire fast. If they're not working out, and if they're not doing what they say, or we're just having issues, we have to just move on, get someone who's actually capable.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was going on? Give me the rundown again. What was going on with the draw issue and the plumbing?
Yeah, so we had to do some banking actually, and I had to top up our account a little bit because just like any project, you have unforeseen issues or things that come up. And in our case, the way we forecasted our budget so far, we didn't really consider that there was this one plumbing issue that had to be done, which was about $5,000 worth of work that had to be done prior to our framing in the basement. So just something that we came out of the blue. And so I had to actually do a manual transfer of funds to our contractor just to keep him running and going, because he got this plumber in last minute for us. And I want to keep our contractors fed. They're like family to us. If they're good, you want to keep them and make them happy. So we had to go over to Bank of America there just really quick, do some work there, checked on the project. We're going to be doing some framing here coming up soon. And then we've already cleared the outside and done some exterior work. And then in the next month or so, that's where we're going to be actually starting some roughing of electrical as well.
Yep.
And replacing one section of the load-bearing beam and adding two additional footings. So like with jack posts. So nothing too crazy, but there was a little bit of sag. And you can expect that with Detroit homes, they're old and
it'll still be fixed.
Everything's fixable with a good amount of money and a good attitude.
Yeah, there's so many of those houses just sitting there waiting to be fixed, just saying, fix me. So one thing I do want to mention, this project is being funded through not just a single mortgage, but rather several draws as we make progress through the renovations.
Construction draws.
Yeah, so we have the construction draws, but so that just gives more context as far as the situation we are in. The plumbing that had to be done before the framing, that came as a surprise before the draw with the funds. So we're looking at that thinking next time we'll go in planning to have a bit more of a float. So we're getting more context now as far as how much we should have in reserve and all that sort of thing, and what those situations might look like, because it's not an emergency necessarily. It's just that you need to keep things moving. We actually had the same thing happen with our Cleveland flip, our Cleveland renovation recently. We have the duplex there that we partnered with. That was the same sort of thing where it wasn't going to jeopardize the project. It's just if we didn't have a stopgap, it would prolong the project, and we were looking at maybe a full month of delay before the refinance at the end of the project. Because for that project we'd be holding it, so the refinance would be considered our completion date. So you sometimes have to throw in extra cash just to keep things moving.
Yeah, and one other thing to kind of differentiate this situation from others is this lender is new to us, and
Yeah,
they actually, though, to be honest, they've been a little difficult, but that's not necessarily our fault. It's just the project, since it is a bigger renovation budget than the actual purchase price, and a couple other factors. We're limited to this one lender, and this lender
yeah,
also doesn't give you that draw of money up front. You have to put the work in first of that couple $1,000s, and then you can get your first draw, which isn't necessarily
yeah,
typical of other lenders. Usually on a normal construction draw, or most normally, they'll say, "Hey, here's your first chunk of cash of 25K or whatever it is to get you to that first installment." Then you have your inspector or your receipts, and we provide that to them, and then they'll give you the next draw. They'll kind of release the
mhm,
next funds, but we had to put a bit more skin in the game in this case, just
yeah,
because the project, like we said, is it's a little bit of a mess
yeah.
in terms of just being a house that needs some love.
A lot, a
Yeah.
lot. So to be honest, I do the same thing if I were them. Some Canadians you've never met before come and say, "Hey, want to give me some money?"
Yeah.
It was like, for what? This piece of crap? But yeah, and even then, they were the only ones who wanted to touch it. And even then, they said, "Sure, but you put skin in the game first, so we can actually know
Mhm.
you're serious about this." And so there is at least something more to lend against, something more as far as security goes. But I'm glad that it worked out though, because it took a little bit to get that whole lending thing figured out in the first
Mhm.
place, and that's actually a whole another thing. Because that how long did that delay our closing, getting the whole lending situation figured out?
We had to delay, or we extended our closing twice. So initially, we were actually supposed to close end of
Yeah,
September. So that was a little crazy. And
it,
shout out to our lenders, like our personal like
yeah.
financiers as well, for the patience and working with us and rolling the punches, because this was a little crazy in terms of having to really extend into that November
I know. I
timeframe.
was so worried. The seller I know was not thrilled, was not happy. Like,
No,
but no, we at
they
least
were
we
pissed.
did close. But they obviously no seller's happy
Yeah.
about a like 2 month extension.
One little
But
tip is have a really good realtor to fight for you,
oh
to
yeah,
kind of calm down the other side, the sellers,
yeah,
because shout out to Matt Bush.
yeah,
He's a
I
legend.
helped out with
He
that.
he kind of cooled them down a little bit, and also we also upped our deposit a little bit to in terms of how much money to give them, and I
Mm.
think that showed our seriousness and kind of gave them a bit more confidence that we would still close.
So,
Yeah.
okay, a bit of a different thing, but you mentioned the deposit. Um, what is the average deposit? This is something I didn't realize. What's the average deposit in the States versus Canada?
Yo, good question. So in Canada, normally it's 20% down, right? And then obviously if you're doing like a single family house, you can do 5%, or even with some of the MLI select, you can go, if you're a high net worth individual, 5%, or you can do these certain things. But if you're a Canadian investing in the States,
We have the down payment.
you
Yeah,
gotta put 30% down.
right.
Yeah. Is that kind of what you were
Oh yeah,
asking?
yeah, yeah. That's actually another thing. But yeah, so you have to put down, because we're Canadian, 30% down. So I was like, okay, whatever. But then also the deposit when you close, um, just as far as like, I know in Canada I've done before like a $15,000 deposit,
Hmm.
uh, whereas I can't remember what it was. This is bad. I need the numbers in front of me, but generally the deposit is a little lower in the U.S. just for buying houses.
Yeah, they're okay with
So
taking a little less, but also to be fair, also our purchase price was also only 75,000
yeah,
bucks.
so you're looking at that. This is a bit of
Yeah.
a different situation. So maybe
Mhm.
maybe it wouldn't come into play as much here. But
Yeah. I guess what are things we tell them about this Detroit project? Can we talk about a little bit of the what can we
so the
to let
area, I
people,
know,
yeah, tell about the
if
area.
you've seen other posts, we say this a lot because we think it's important. So I'll say it again. With just the city of Detroit in general, um, you're right now, if you're getting in, you're catching a wave that is kind of a slow roll. The past, I don't know, 15 years, the place has really been improving.
Mhm.
So you go back, who no, who was it? Somebody was telling me about how it used to be in the 90s. Somebody who actually was there, but just basically, it earned its reputation at some point, but slowly has been improving, and the downtown especially radiating outwards. There's been improvements. So we got lucky and found a property in that transition zone,
Mhm.
So if you're going to be looking at a neighborhood heat map for the A, B, C, D zones for a neighborhood, we got in that area, that band,
Mhm.
where the radiating improvement from the downtown core is now improving that band. And then beyond that is someplace where maybe, like, I'm not going to say it's terrible, but maybe somewhere where you'd prefer not to invest, more of the D neighborhood sort of area. So I'm happy to see that I think it was two other homes on that very street we're on.
Directly across from
Yeah,
us.
one directly across the street. The contractors can all say hi to each other. Um, it's getting renovated right now, so you see it's going in the right direction, and that you see other investors are putting their money into this area. So that's where we do all of our. You do your calculations for where to go, where to target, but there's always that thought in your head where it's not an exact science. So you have to ask, like, okay, did we target right? Did we get in the right area? You don't know until the project's done, and you hold it for 5 years. Then you know exactly with all your hindsight. But
Mhm.
um, but it's nice to see other people putting their money where their mouth is and saying we came to the same conclusion. So that kind of, I'm sitting there going, okay, whew, I
Yeah,
think
it confirms your
I
decision,
think
yeah.
there's somebody else who's smarter than me who also said, you know what, we're going to go here too. So I'm happy to see that anytime it happens. And then on top of that, um, I was happy to see one of our partners coming to the same number as far as profit projection. And I look at that and I say, okay,
Yeah, we're
because
all on the same
we're all
page.
on the same page. There's somebody else who I didn't talk to until after we came to the same conclusion, and so that just took a weight off my chest to say, okay, good, good, because it is sometimes difficult to project what your end result is going to be for a project like this.
I agree, especially if you're not the if you're the first person ever going into an area, you're the first shovel in the ground, it can be a little dicey. There's high risk, but there is definitely high reward because if you were that
Mhm.
first person and you again plan to hold, maybe not necessarily flip, be that first person,
Right.
but if you plan to hold especially, and if you gamble, it could pay off, but you generally want to be maybe the second or third person because then, okay, Rob made a flip or a project here and it appraised for this much. Now I have a comp that says, okay, I can get this value for this same certain property. And then I can also base his finishes and kind of maybe I can find out what his rents are and kind of then I can incorporate that into my numbers and hone it in a little bit more. And then that
Mhm.
way you're satisfying uh, all your kind of your safety criteria, your what you need to know.
Mhm.
So I think that's key. So we did pick a good areas in Midtown, just north of Midtown, called the North End, and there's a lot of nice areas in Detroit. Just to add back to what Robert was saying, Detroit has a real stigma, I think, in some people's minds. But as of actually this year, it has the lowest murder rate since like their 1960s. So their
Yeah.
police chief is doing an amazing job actually
Yeah.
reducing crime. They're gotten rid of a lot of blight. They're incentivizing investors to buy and do it for places. And there's literally millions of dollars flowing into the city, especially downtown core.
Yeah.
And then
Google Detroit population, and you'll see a graph, and you see there's an inflection point, so where it's trending upwards again for the first time in a while.
yeah,
So
yeah, for the first time, the
and,
population
and
actually
that
jumped a little
started
bit.
a little bit ago, but I mean, you look at that, and that's again nothing's a magic bullet, but that's what you want to see. It's just another thing. If you didn't see that, you'd kind of have to second guess the rest of it. But that's what you want to see. So it's another thing where you
Mhm.
say, okay, okay, that's the right direction.
When picking a market, like we did for Detroit, because we like Windsor, we like Detroit, we like Cleveland. What
Mhm.
other things did we take into account when picking these markets? What kind of things should investors maybe look out for when investing from afar, trying to pick a lane or pick a city?
Oh, first, I mean, just keeping it super simple. Obviously, you're looking at the ratio between the purchase prices and the rent price, because so Detroit, for example, and well, yeah, Detroit, for example, we
Mm,
saw potential for good flip profits because of everything we talked about. But at the same time, we looked at Detroit and Cleveland and said, if we had to hold it, or if we just didn't like what happened with the market, if things fell apart in 4 months, or whatever, who knows? 2008 happens again, and we say, oh no, we have unrealized losses and don't want to sell. Okay, well, can we have another exit strategy?
mhm.
Because holding it, even though you're not holding and renting, that's still what I'd call an exit strategy. It's an idea of what to do with
Yep.
your property after the work's done. So really, really basic. Just what's the the purchase price to rent price ratio. So you're looking at the whole 1% rule thing, whatever. That's people recognize what you mean when you say 1% rule, but I mean,
I don't know if people do. Can you say it really quickly for
sure,
people
yeah,
that might not
okay.
know?
Just the idea that every month your let's see, this is my what I like to do with it. Maybe somebody else has a slightly different, but every month your gross rent is about 1% of your asset value. So a $200,000 building should give you gross rent of $2,000 every month.
Hmm.
So you look at that, you're usually pretty happy with that. So uh, yeah, Windsor doesn't necessarily hit the 1% rule on most purchases, but that's okay, which is why it's just a reference. I wouldn't even call it a tool. It's just a reference point of
Mm-hmm.
what used to be talked about a lot. So I find myself bringing it up too.
Of
Uh,
course. That's a good
especially,
indicator, like a good thumbs up, thumbs
yeah,
down.
yeah. So especially so when we're looking at markets, one thing that drew us to those markets like Cleveland is because you realize, oh, you, you can reasonably expect to find something that hits the 1% rule. You still have to do your usual thing of looking all through everything and putting in 10 offers, getting one accepted, and out of those only having then having to actually close on it. So I mean, it's not magic, it's not necessarily easy, but you can find it. So that's what we like to target it.
Yeah. I think too, one of the things to add, we like these markets as well in the States specifically because there's no rent control in the states that we choose. Like we're not going to
Right.
California, but in Detroit and Cleveland, or we should say Michigan and Ohio, we actually are not controlled by rent. So we can actually get good prices. And if the tenant, God forbid, they don't pay, we actually can get them out, as opposed to Ontario, where it's a lot tougher right now. Like
Yeah, Ontario
where
is a lot tougher.
you've experienced some stuff, the landlord tenant, but for
Yeah.
some of your own tenants,
Yeah, so
unfortunately.
Ontario, I've gone through the L1, the N4, and then the L1 process. So if you haven't gone through that, basically rent is on the first of the month. That means on the second of the month that they haven't paid, or if they even a dollar short, you can put the N4 in the mailbox or wherever you serve it. And it's
Hmm.
just a notice. It doesn't actually do anything. It's just a notice from the landlord to the tenant. It's the official form to say, you haven't paid. Sorry, it's just heads up. This is what could happen
Hmm.
if you don't pay in the next couple weeks. And then if in the next couple weeks they don't pay, then you file the L1, which is the application to the landlord tenant board.
Hmm.
The tenant gets the application and then you file it. So that means three parties, the landlord, tenant, and then the LTB all have copies. A lot of people have a paralegal file it just to do it right because everybody's paranoid. But I don't know if that's some paralegal propaganda trying to get your money. I don't know. I actually found it was pretty easy to file. You do it online. I did it one time. Um, Sometimes I'm a little bit sloppy. Don't cross my T's, dot my I's. But I mean, it went through. It was fine.
Hmm.
We had the hearing and
You
everything
spell
like
their
that.
names correctly. I've heard
Yeah.
sometimes if you spell the name incorrectly, then you're back to the line again, having to wait, go through the whole process again. So as long
Yeah.
as
So
you,
just
as long as you just fill the form correctly,
it's like 2 pages.
yeah.
Just
I
double check it. Just double check it.
I'd say though that would be the first thing that we want to offload is property management. We don't want to manage our own properties. It's just
Yeah.
because we own only a handful here in Windsor, and we're kind of more focusing in other areas for
Yeah.
these. That's why Robert has the time to do this. But overall,
Yeah. It's not too bad,
it's
especially Samantha, my wife, has helped out with
yeah, she's part
the
of the
vetting
team.
process too. So that's actually fantastic. She's dealt with that and done a great job because we don't really have many issues. I mean,
She has a good feel for like people,
yeah,
good
yeah.
gut. Yeah.
She's a good gut feeling. I mean, she's yeah, more choosy than I am in a lot of things, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So
Maybe that's a good segue because it's important to pick your partners. I'm not necessarily saying about like wife, but just partners in general that you work
yeah,
with.
but also wife.
And yeah, well, of course, wife. That's probably the greatest
Yeah.
partnership of all.
Yeah.
But it's important to have people that complement you, have strengths and can help you with your weaknesses. So same thing for me. I know sometimes I have a blind spot. I'm a little too kind or something like that. You need people who can kind of check you and
Yeah.
give you that sanity check in a way, or call you out on stuff that you might be incorrect about.
Right. Yeah. No helps
Yeah.
out there.
But that's why I appreciate about Robert because whereas more maybe I'm more go go go, he's actually a little bit more not cautious is the word, but you're a bit more.
Well, probably.
You still you kind of you rein it and help
But
make
yeah.
sure we don't go spread ourselves too thin or
So yeah,
go do too many things all at once. So
Tom's
I
the go, go,
appreciate
go.
that.
And then I'm maybe more the analysis paralysis end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So it is good.
It's good.
I appreciate that.
I'm pulling your arms,
Yeah.
resisting it, but
Yeah.
it's in the best way.
Yeah. And sometimes resisting because I'm lazy and I just don't feel like doing anything.
Hey, we all
But,
have our moments.
but there's that.
But look at us
Yeah.
hustling here after in Christmas break. Who else is
Yeah.
doing this?
Yeah, no, I was just bored of eating cheese and charcuterie leftovers, so I just thought, oh yeah, might as well.
Yeah, charcuterie.
Oh, yeah,
Oh man,
always. Oh, actually, that's one of the benefits of the marrying into a Serbian family. You get enough charcuterie to feed an army. And
yeah,
then you
you're
don't
all
have
your
any,
sausage and
then you don't have
everything
any
else.
space for don't have any space for the actual meal.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's
About
fantastic.
$350 worth of bacon that was smoked.
Oh my goodness.
So thanks to my father-in-law. It's fantastic stuff.
I've tasted that stuff and it's pretty good.
Yeah.
It definitely rivals some of the good other
I don't
brands.
know. I don't see the point of eating anything else when you just eat. Like I'm serious. I end up eating it for like 3 meals a day. But that's why we do real estate.
Yeah,
So
we gotta make the money
more
so we can
bacon.
afford it. Why are we really doing this real estate stuff, Rob?
Oh man. Okay. Wow.
I know it's a loaded question.
Yeah, but I appreciate how with the whole wealth genius thing, one of the first things Alfonso ends up asking the group when going through the multifamily seminar thing is your why. And so you get people talking in 7 layers of why. I like the concept, but I mean, I don't even think you need to go 7 down. You go like
No,
2 down, and
just
then
say where
you're
it
there.
lands.
You just
We're on the
cut
same
it.
page.
You just cut it. So Tom and I are of one mind as far as the objective is to build the empire,
McCormick
which
Empire.
is for the benefit of the family. Because at a certain point, you go to work so you can buy a hot tub and quality bacon, and then you get that. It's like the dog catching its tail. What's the point? You get there, now what do you do? Oh no, it's like the dog chasing a car, and it finally gets there, and it's like, what now? So that's where a lot of people are at without an absolute purpose. So ultimately, it comes down to the glory of God. That
Yes,
is
sir.
the absolute purpose. Beyond that, you have your subsidiary purposes that are underneath that objective and that authority. And so that is to, I don't know if I can get, I'm going too much off real estate here, but ultimately glorify God. Below that, that's the in Ecclesiastes to fear God and keep His commandments. But then I like some scholars are going to correct me on this, but was it the Westminster Catechism or whatever it is? I could be wrong. Forget it. But somebody shortened it back in the day and said to enjoy God. And so, okay, that's the second objective. And what better way to do that? By working super hard. I complain about engineering. I complain about my day job, but I actually like it. If you didn't like, you get bored.
If you didn't work, you'd have no purpose.
So really, why do real estate? Because it's something where you can pour more intensity and effort into, because that is, as far as enjoying life, the objective isn't to be comfortable. The objective is to exert energy. I don't know. This is I say at risk of getting a little too far off and like running down my own little escape routes. Whatever allows for maximum effort. That's why what really brings satisfaction is the things. If you go through life just waking up, having heat on in the winter, wearing a sweater, always eating. I realized one day that I had gone 6 months without actually feeling hungry, just because I eat 3 meals a day. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah, we have it good in North America.
And so then beyond that thinking, it wasn't just physical hunger, it was like everything else. And so that's why people end up like that 90s movie Office Space. They're just, everything's gray and it's the same thing over and over again. That's why people in retirement sometimes shut down if they don't have anything to do.
They need their hobbies when you're
why do real estate? Is it because I love bricks and mortar? No, it's because it's something that you can continue to do with intensity. So that's one of the biggest,
and it
biggest
can
points.
be hard, right?
Yeah. So look for something difficult to do and do it, and then that is what brings ultimate satisfaction. And actually, money being just an approximation of value, you obviously want to make money, but the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. So are you doing it because you love money, or are you doing it because you want to provide value? So that's where we both want to provide and create value
for everyone, our family, our friends, anyone that wants to work with us.
That's it. Yeah. And
Action. I think that's actually why they do it. They go action, and then you
Oh,
can
to get the
sync up
sync?
the audio. Yeah.
Oh, hey, Tom.
How's it going? We're back again
Yeah,
from
we're
our
back.
little short break there. We had to cut the video really quick. The camera
Mhm.
actually overheated.
Yeah, just had to toss it in the freezer. It's
Yeah.
as it is
Yeah.
sometimes.
We're upping our podcast game and everything, but I think we need to also up maybe the camera that we're using because this is a Canon M200, but
Liquid cool camera.
yeah, it's good for like the lives and stuff and
Yeah.
for Facebook. But anyhow, so let's get this back here. So let's talk a little about Windsor
Yeah.
because we've talked a lot about the States, but honestly, since we are here, we're Windsor, we're boots on the ground. We have deep roots here. We've done ADUs, we've done a bunch of things. We still love this city, and we don't mind Canada. It's just
No, I prefer to look and buy in Windsor.
yeah,
It's just that lately, um, we just haven't been finding as much, so we've turned some attention to the States because that's also a good place. But all things being said, I still prefer Windsor just because I can actually just basically go for a walk or just drive over and on my way back from work and see the place. So I still want. Ideally, we'd be really ramping up in Windsor. I just need to be a little more intentional about the deal flow. It's just been easier to find things in the States right now, so that's where our attention is going.
Mm. So in 2025, what are kind of our overview plans for Windsor? Maybe we can
Mm.
kind of give people a sneak peek or at least explain where we want to head and kind of how we're going to get there.
2025, we want to execute.
You can sit
Yeah,
back. I'm
okay.
just
Yeah,
going to move the
I've
mic
been leaning
closer.
forward this whole time. We want to execute new builds. So we like the numbers. The numbers work with new builds, especially. Um, you have the MLI Select program.
Hmm.
It's a tool. You don't need to use it, or you don't necessarily want to use it on every single thing, but it's a tool that, if you meet the criteria, might actually be really useful. So, for example, we just have here in Windsor a bunch of sixplexes that were built. So, we're calling it a sixplex because it was sold as a unit of six, but there's actually two duplexes built side by side, and
Hmm.
each one had an ADU in the back.
Yep.
So a total of 6 units. So those were built, and the builder used the government incentives. So that means 50-year amortization, and I think, did they manage to get the buyers 5% down?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
they
could
got
go
5% down.
in 50-year amortization,
Think about that. So 5% down
or
on
maybe
a
40, but
on a
still.
$2 million purchase, which immediately appraises for whatever it was, 2.5 million. Uh, that's crazy. You're tossing in 5% and then getting basically double your down payment in instant equity because it
Mhm.
appraised for more. So you're looking at those crazy. So you're looking at the cash on cash return. If you want to look at that number, I know some people don't like it as much, but you're looking at that. It's just a wild swing for the amount of return you're getting on your investment, and then it cash flows.
Mhm.
So
That's
part of the
huge.
reason it cash flows is because you can get the I actually don't know how much, but you can get a preferred rate for borrowing through the CMHC incentive, right?
Yeah.
I
Slightly
I
lower
get
rate
get
compared to
mixed up with that,
most
but
A lenders. Yeah.
yeah, so that helps a little bit with the cash flow. Um, so we're looking to get in on that. Um, it,
Yeah. New builds are one of the main ways you can actually still make a buck here in Canada. So one, new builds don't have rent control, which is great.
yeah, since 2018,
Yep.
anything built after that, you don't have the rent control.
And we are also have previous experience making ADUs.
Yeah,
So and that's construction experience making new units. So we like the idea of building and creating
yeah.
things. It's
So we're
nice
not
to
experts, but we had some interaction with the building code. You know,
yep.
yeah,
And because of that too, we can kind of speak the language to the developers. And with all the incentives going on, it really makes sense that you can it really makes sense right now if there's incentives from the government. So why
right.
not take the handouts? If you
Mhm.
know what I mean? Because Windsor especially has barely any vacancy, and let alone like for sure Canada as a whole has
Yeah,
issues with housing right now, but Windsor specifically has been called out by Pierre Polyev. So when he gets in,
yeah, that
he's
was
he's
interesting.
talking about to Drew Doken saying, "Hey, we're gonna get your butts in gear to actually start
Because
building."
what I think, oh man, Windsor was one of the
one of the lowest either in
Lowest.
Ontario or in all of Canada for new builds and just new construction.
Like there's some stuff happening, but apparently we're not building fast enough. So it's hard. It's hard when you try to account for politics in your business strategy because politics is a fickle beast. And so we won't even go there right now. But whatever it is, you're trying to read the tea leaves and say, okay, something's going to happen. Whoever's going to do something rather with legislation, who knows what, but we'd like to know because that will have immediate material change on your business plan. So if we end up with federal attention on Windsor specifically, they've named us.
Mm-hmm.
That could actually work in our favor. If we're going to get more incentives, they already did the whole MLI Select program. They've done it to come see the 4 units as of right. We had the
4 units on one plot of land.
Yes, so that means you can do your plot of land and then split the building into a duplex, and then hey, your outbuilding can be a ADU. And oh, by the way, you have a basement. Okay, we'll fix that thing up. Maybe add some egress windows or something. Oh, bam, you have a 4th unit. And the municipal zoning bylaws can't tell you we don't like that because the federal government in that case, right?
Yeah,
yeah. The federal government would say
they're overriding.
We're telling you have to do that. So, those are 2 ways. Bill 23. The government gets involved, whether you like it or not. Doesn't matter if you like it or not because that's what we have. So you work with it and see what you can do. So new builds, Windsor looks like it's the way to go, and we're looking at the possibility of more action being taken. Whether or not action is taken, you can't count on it. So you have to plan in both directions. But we see as it is now, currently, it's worth it to do new builds, and it could potentially get tastier in the future.
Yeah, it's already a good deal, but again, with all the stuff coming through the pipeline, it could be a lot better.
Yeah.
And we already know Windsor specifically is going to be a hot market because it's forecast to be one of the biggest growing places in Ontario cities in terms of economic activity and population. Because Windsor has always been kind of at a lower price point compared to a lot of other places in Canada.
Yep.
Or I keep saying Canada, but in Ontario. And so we have nowhere to go but up. Now we have the mega hospital coming. We have Gordie Howe Bridge about to be completed. We have the battery plant. We have Amazon facilities. We have a lot of jobs coming here, and a lot of other like manufacturing already like strong for the auto industry as well.
And I mean, it's the most southern place in Canada. So I mean, you look how everyone in Canada lives 100 miles or 100 kilometers from the border with the U.S. I don't know. It's just a warm place people move to. So
yeah, Windsor's honestly great, and a lot of people they they call it the butthole of Canada, but it's really not.
Yeah, I think a late night show.
Yeah, late night one time. Yeah,
like, what is going on?
I hate that.
I mean, like, sure, depress our prices so we can buy more.
Yeah,
but yeah, the people, I don't know, they don't get it. It's nice enough. It's good. I like it. I love the area.
Yeah, we've been here our entire lives, so we just want to make it better. And why not actually put our money where our mouth is and build new here? We want to build new developments, but even if we have to do a couple ADUs here and there, well, we love doing that too, because you've done a detached ADU before. I've done a basement ADU. We've consulted for an ADUs as well.
Yeah,
so
they're not that bad. Yeah. We've said it before. Again, if you see some other content, we're always saying like, if you have extra space, put it in an ADU. Just do it. You're leaving money on the table. It's a lot of effort, but it's not actually that bad. So
one way too is that ADUs can benefit you is they add cash flow to your property. So maybe if your property is not performing correctly, or I should say it's underperforming, then that could maybe be the thing that pushed you over the edge to actually hit almost the 1% rule, right?
Yeah.
And I guess what are the biggest hurdles in terms of creating ADUs that you think are out there?
So talking to another Wealth Genius member, they got things moving, got things started, and then the municipality ended up, after they were already initiating the process, municipality said, no, you're 2 feet too close to the property line with your garage. It's like 2 feet.
The bureaucracy pisses me off.
So you'd think, like, I don't know, I understand why bylaws exist. I am pro bylaw. As long as there's not too many of them.
Windsor bylaw officers.
Yeah. As long as there's not too many bylaws.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, but that's anyway, the 2 feet, that's really just,
That's ridiculous.
that's all. So you get things like that where you could be doing everything right. You could have a perfect place, and then there might be just one little thing. So that, honestly, I think that's the hardest part, is just making sure you see every little detail before you buy the property, or because you might overlook one little thing, and then you're at the municipality's whim as far as whether they approve a minor variance on the bylaw requirements. So I don't think it affects that many people. So I mean, it's not a huge fear. It's just I look at it thinking, am I going to get screwed by just one little thing? Like, you just don't dot your I.
Yeah, it can happen, but I think you can also preemptively go to the city and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing this.
Yeah.
What do you think?"
Okay. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. I
maybe
guess
maybe in
so.
that case, that wealth genius member just didn't check. Maybe although 2 feet, that's pretty minor.
Or whatever it was. I'd have to ask
They could
again. It
probably
was.
have applied for a variance potentially, but
I think they did, and it was shot down. So either way,
oh, jeez.
either way, it's annoying. So that's too bad. But yeah, that's one thing. But I would say the biggest other thing for me personally was uh, utilities.
Hmm.
Like, oh my goodness, 1/4 of my project cost was getting utilities put in.
How much did that cost you? Run you
Oh man, in total, actually, just a
for the
second, more
utilities?
than a quarter. Just because I didn't have gas, water, electricity out there. I skipped gas because it would have been more, even with the Get
Yeah,
Connected
for your
program.
detached ADU.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I could have got like,
it wasn't inside the structure already. It was just had a
yeah,
new. Yeah.
you could get, I think, 30 meters or so of gas line put in for free with the Enbridge Get Connected program. But that was a hassle. And I had two contractors just straight up say, no, we won't quote you because we don't feel like it, because you're going to make us do all the paperwork and then won't go with the quote. So I said, great, then I don't want to work with you either because you're annoying. Anyway, that's a whole different thing. I'm kind of venting. But utilities was a bit of a sticker shock for me. If you can get, and this is the problem, you want to find something that already has utilities close, so you can just, for example, a basement ADU, you were able to use your building's existing services.
I had 100 amps, so I had to bump it up to 200.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So you do have that.
a little bit of
So
cost, but not as much as you, because mine was only like
yeah,
maybe like 6 grand in total,
yeah,
and that's including a new panel and stuff.
yeah. Because we
But
we
yeah,
got 3 quotes for directional drilling to get the garage wastewater and supply water. And we connected it to the house, not even to the sewer. So that cut our distance down by half. But
hmm,
it still ended up being just under $20,000 just for water. And that was the lowest of the 3 quotes. So
yeah,
that that sucked. Then you add mini splits on top. So we went mini splits because, again, we didn't want to have to bother with gas and more drilling and all this other stuff. And also addition to the project timeline. So we just did full mini splits, and that was another 15 grand. So I mean, it ended up being actually a third of the project cost was utilities.
hmm.
Yeah, more than that. So anyway, that was the worst. So if you can just find a project that wouldn't require quite as much work on the utilities end of things, you could potentially save a lot of money. But again, it's hard to tell right off the bat.
Right. I think even so, either way, at least for detached AD, you might have to just factor that in. Just
For
know
detached, you're kind of stuck with
that
it, I guess.
you
Yeah,
have to add those. But
yeah.
what's nice is, I believe now with at least it comes to right, you can actually build inside your house. You could have that 3 units, and then you put it detached in the back or not.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
so you
Yeah.
don't necessarily have to make an ADU in the backyard. You could just put two in your existing house. So
Mhm,
you almost have a triplex then. But
mhm,
why not go all the way? If you are allowed to do four, you should go four if you have the funds for, because
mhm.
when you have people working there, it's not much more cost for them to just put a pad in the back,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
start building, because all your trades are right there. And then obviously then you increase your cash flow.
Yep.
And the more units you have, the better it is to kind of support the
Mhm.
building.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because you don't, for a backyard ADU, you don't need a conventional foundation and all the digging and excavation that comes with it. You can get away with slab on grade, just a 4-inch slab,
mhm.
and it works fine. You make sure that it's insulated up to building code, and it works great, and it stays warm in the winter, stays cool in the summer. But yeah, about the 4 unit thing, there was talk, and can't remember where I heard, but that Windsor was also going to get the 4 units as of right, or at least
They're getting pushed into it. Yeah,
it's
there's
likely.
rumors. Yeah.
We're looking at the direction things are going, so it's not a guarantee again because it's politics. Who knows what's going to happen? But there's a reasonable chance that
It's
could
a
happen.
very good chance because builders are actually still they're actually now making new design plans so that their ADUs in the back are split
Yeah,
level. So
yeah,
when
yeah,
it does come in effect, they will then block that off, and then you have 2 units. So
yeah,
I'd wager that it's going to happen. Just a
yeah.
matter of when.
I mean,
That's the question.
yeah, I'd say probably.
Yeah.
But a lot of people weren't thrilled about the idea of 4 units as of right in Windsor. I even hear CBC when CBC is talking about it, it's kind of mainstream. So
Yeah.
they were asking people what they thought, and a lot of people didn't like the idea because they assume it's going to turn entire streets into rentals or create new slums. But if you look at a case of Tom is just saying that builders were intentionally creating the possibility for 4 units in the future. Most existing buildings don't really have space for 4 units.
Yeah.
So 4 units as of right, guess what? The only buildings that it's going to affect would be new builds, which most of Windsor's built in, um, or just a handful, a subset of buildings that are geometrically capable
Yeah.
of containing 4 units. So if you actually drove through and looked around or asked people, hey, can I look through your house and take some measurements? Assuming you were able to go through that, just as say a thought experiment here, uh, the number of 4 unit eligible buildings wouldn't be huge. There's a lot out there, but it's not going to be every building. So you're not going to wind up with entire neighborhoods degrading into high density slums or something. People will oppose the 4 unit as of right on that grounds. I don't know. Maybe it'll shift things in that direction if you wanted to quantify things, but it's not going to be a drastic change. It's going to be more gradual. If people didn't talk about it in the news, I don't think most Windsor residents would notice until 10 years later.
Hmm.
It's really not dramatic.
Right. We're not going to turn to Toronto necessarily, where everyone and their mother has already like units maximized on their lot. What's one thing too is for an ADU, you need to actually you can only have a certain percentage of the lot covered. They need a certain
Yeah,
percentage of green space as well. And so if some of these conditions aren't met, sorry, you just can't build. You can get variances, and I know some builders have where they have actually really reduced their green space.
hmm,
But if you already have an existing garage on your yard, or if your lot is too skinny, because there's a lot of skinny lots in Windsor,
yeah,
then you're going to have issues. And one other thing too is if you only have a single story house, you can't build the ADU any higher than that existing structure.
right, yeah,
So if you have a tiny house, which there are a lot of these wartime houses in Windsor that I don't know how tall you'd say my house is, but things like this,
yeah, because it's one
you
story. Yeah,
it's one story. You can't really build that duplex or bigger in the backyard anyhow. You'd have a tougher time.
hmm,
For you, at least you have already like a two-story duplex,
it's like 2.5.
two and a
Yeah,
half, yeah. And so you had no problem with any height restrictions if
yeah,
you had wanted to build up.
yeah. Because the area I'm in Walkerville, everybody has 2.5 stories.
Yeah.
So it's 3 stories. It's just your third story is the attic converted to space. So my bedroom has 45-degree walls I can hit my head on all the time. So
Yeah. So yeah, just to add, you don't necessarily have issues. Or, sure, you could have issues if you're trying to build,
yeah.
but one website that we like to look at is ADU Search, and that's
Mm,
adusearch.ca, and that will kind of give you like a map of all the lots in Windsor and of other places in Canada as well, where you have the potential to build, and it'll show if it's a yellow, it's as in maybe you can if you did demolish the garage in the back, or maybe it's a red and says no, you physically can't because this is a zoning for commercial, or this is
yeah,
the house is the entire size of the lot, so there is no space.
that's a great place to
So
start, and it'll tell you. Uh, y- you don't know what you don't know,
mhm,
and so it'll start telling you what you don't know. You'll see why it's not allowed, and say, "Oh, I didn't realize that was even a thing." And you go search it up. You know now what to look for on the municipal website. So it's really just the slow, arduous journey of educating yourself on legislation.
yeah.
Nobody wants to read that, but if it makes you money, okay, we'll read it.
It's good to stay educated, and we'll continue to educate you in one moment, but we're gonna actually do a quick jump cut because I'm gonna restart the camera.
Okay. back to the 2025 goals, I started rambling about Windsor. So we were talking about new builds in Windsor. Tom, what else?
Yeah. So for 2025, we want to take a lot more initiative and intentional steps towards our goals. And so we've kind of already stated our goals. It's to um, basically to do the hard things, glorify God, and basically create some new builds. But in order to do that, we need to make more connections. We need to actually get more deal flow, and we need to meet more people and actually partner too. So um, this coming year, we're going to be ramping up our kind of our lives and talking with you guys,
Mhm.
trying to provide content.
Yeah.
We actually we want to talk to as many of you as possible, especially who want boots on the ground in Windsor and want to do deals here in Windsor, Ontario. So I think that's the first thing. We want to meet more people. And so we're going
Yeah.
to be reaching out. We're going to be trying to make connections and getting in those doors where people are doing high level things where we want to get to,
Yeah. Just understand how they think, how they operate. And
because
there's,
we just need to learn. We
yeah,
need
and
to,
there's all those things about just learning how people do things. Um, the Burr method was a one-time revolutionary, and now it's commonplace. But there were some early adopters, so it's things like that too. You want to understand what's going on,
Mhm.
and you want to foresee and be proactive rather than reactive, of course. But I mean, if you're quick with reactivity, I mean that's also just as useful.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to build deep roots, I think, is also what we need to say too,
Yeah.
because the deeper roots and the more connections you have in the city, the better. Because it's all about who you know in real estate. It honestly is. It's just the connections, the people you meet along the
Yeah.
way. It's been told before, it's like, if you're here and my goals are over there, what's in between? It's people. They're the ones that will get it done. There's ones who are going to bring you the money or bring you the deal or kind of show you how to navigate certain situations. So
Mhm.
we really want to put an emphasis on meeting people and making genuine connections.
And it's more fun if you meet more people too.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it's just better. Like I like the meetups with the all things REI
Yeah.
because um, yeah, it's more fun going to a pub, getting a burger and hanging out with people than it is to not buy a burger.
Yeah.
If I had the options, I'm gonna have to say I'd rather incorporate going out to eat and hanging out with people into my job if I
Small
had the
little
choice.
plug.
Yeah.
Never Eat Alone is a great book. And I've bought that book actually for Robert, but the whole premise
Oh
is
yeah, yeah.
when you do
It's on my list
go
still.
for meals and stuff, meet with people because when you break bread with people, that's how you build a deeper connection.
Just now I thought you said never get alone at
No, no,
first.
never eat alone. Never
Never
eat
eat alone.
alone. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good book.
So that's still on my list. I have like
There's so many
I
books
have
to
I
read.
think 6 books. I have about 1,000 pages on my reading list right now. I have to skim through some, but it's about number 4 on the list. I got to get through it to get to it. I'm excited for it though. It's been a while. I got to get to it.
Many more goals in 2025.
Yeah. No, seriously. Now,
But
yeah. Now actually, I need to read with one hand. Now I'm always on my phone. I'm carrying the baby and everything like that. So I need to actually just say, okay, forget it. Sure, it's a little bit inconvenient to read with one hand and set it down to flip pages, but it's totally doable. So
yeah,
I've been reading a little more now, just that way.
I think reading is key. Just as a side tangent, readers are leaders, right? So as
Oh,
long as you're absorbing
I like that.
information and always learning, it helps you. And I think there's something too, and at least in my mind, the more you read, the more you kind of train in a way you train your focus. Like if you can pay attention to a sheet of paper,
Yeah,
there's something
yeah,
in that
yeah,
I
yeah.
think that kind of keeps your um, brain working and active in all the best ways and not chasing dopamine. I think there's something there,
Oh
but
no, there totally is. I
yeah,
know I mentioned to a few people before how when I started working from home during COVID, I don't anymore, but for about 2 years I did. I was working from home always. I'm home, so I'm always snacking on something. I was always listening to something, podcast, music, whatever it is. And then again, too long in my pajamas, always been comfortable. It was always just, I noticed that, uh, I literally noticed after a year, I could quantify the amount that my attention span and focus had degraded to the
hmm,
point where when I would sit and read like I would when I was 9 years old, I seriously didn't have the focus and attention I had when I was 9.
it's crazy you say that, but I remember the same thing. I remember just being able to read and read and read, and
Oh my goodness.
hours, and I would be content.
I'd sit on that heater in the
Yeah.
upstairs bathroom, and I would just like
Yeah.
I would just
That
read
was
for
the
like 3
spot, guys. That
hours.
was
I would hit up on the thermostat. I'd run downstairs and do that, and then just so the heater would turn on. I remember I would do that all the time. One time, Dad was like, "Why is the heating bill higher?" I remember one time hearing that. I don't know if that was me or not, but it might have been.
might have been. You
But
never know.
but yeah, so
But
the reading's good. The reading's good.
yeah.
It's
So
better than the doom scrolling.
mhm.
So
I'd to add that to one of my personal goals for 2025 is read my Bible more and just read in general more.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So even last night I was reading a book to go to bed because it's better than being on your phone. But back to all things REI and back
Yep.
to Windsor and connections. That's a great point. We're going to be ramping up more all things REI events, interviews,
Mhm.
and more podcasts like this, and then that way we can provide value to you guys, and then also create a space for not only us to connect with people, but people to connect with each other too,
Yeah,
because
exactly. Yeah.
people hunger for that. And I, it's not that we didn't really have an opportunity to connect with people in the past, but I think we didn't have something necessarily like this back when we started,
Yeah.
because when it was COVID, there was nothing, and then even after COVID, there were no meetups. So that's why I created the first one after COVID. And
Yeah.
so
That's great.
humble brag, but like seriously, I
Yeah,
think
it's
people
cool.
want that, and so we're happy to keep providing that for people, and
Mhm.
we'll try to get more serious about it too. Um, so we want to make connections, but we also, I think, in order to scale, me and Robert have been talking. We also want to find partners who actually want to work alongside us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons for building connections, to see if we want to work together and if we share the same values, same visions.
There's a lot. You try to build a log cabin in the wilderness by yourself. You find it's a lot easier if you have a village working on it. So,
Yeah, or even
like,
build that empire. Forget a log cabin. We
yeah,
want to
forget it.
build. We want a whole
I'm talking like
city.
those
Yeah.
survival shows on
No, I
YouTube.
know.
You
I
got
know.
one person he's doing the fishing, he's doing the chopping, he's doing the fire, doing the cooking. But if you just say this person does the cooking, this person does the fishing, this person does the chopping, before you know it, you've built up a civilization with a complex economy. And you
Hmm.
look, you say, well, why does it have to be just civilizational? Like you do it in a business sense too, and all of a sudden you build up a business that has designers, machinists, and project managers. And you look,
Hmm.
the designer isn't doing the machining because it's inefficient for him to do everything. So same thing with real estate partnerships, where we want to create the business economy, the civilization, and the civilizational structure,
Hmm.
where we can work with people, you get more done together. So that's especially why we also started with our own family, because that's the most obvious immediate unit by which you can multiply your productivity and your output, which is by not working as an individual. My brother lives 5 minutes down the road and is doing the exact same thing. Why the heck are we going to be ignoring each other when we could be doing the same thing
Hmm.
and have a higher efficiency? So, and that's why like you start with your family. That's a easy place to start.
Yeah, I feel fortunate that Robert's actually on the same wavelength, because
Yeah,
I know
I'm
there's some
glad for
people
that.
and their brother, their family just
Yeah, I don't
isn't
like it.
of the same mind, or
Yeah,
at least either skeptical of real estate, or maybe just don't get along in general with their personalities. So
yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
appreciative of that for sure.
it's good. Samantha's on the same page too. So
Yeah, yeah,
so
the whole
you
family
can
is.
divide and conquer. So that's the connections. You start with family, but then you can find other like-minded individuals who are equally motivated and have the same thought process. So that's
Mm,
why we do look for partners, so we can have others to learn from, others to work with,
yeah.
and that we can benefit each other. Because that's really it. It's not a zero-sum game. The production of wealth and value uh, in society is not a zero-sum game. You don't have to destroy somebody else's wealth to create your own.
We can build each other up.
Yeah, sure, that can happen, but that's not the objective. That's not the ideal. So you build each other up, and you create more together. So that's why we like partnerships, and that's why we're in a few right now.
Hmm. And to add to that too, I think we were more looking for passive partners,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
because sometimes there's too many cooks in the kitchen, and we're happy to
Yeah,
be
there's that
boots on
too.
the ground. I want to emphasize that, boots on the ground here in Windsor, in Detroit, and maybe not as much boots on the ground in Cleveland, although we are only 2 hours away. Um, but we do want kind of those passive partners to hop on board and um, use their funds instead of all of ours, because right now I know you need to refinance, you have some money to deploy, and we
Yeah.
have some other funds available, but in order to scale again, we can't use all our own money. We're going to run out eventually,
Yeah.
right?
If the money's sitting on the shelf unused, it's opportunity cost. So
Got to keep it circulating.
deploy it as much as deploy all of it, reserving whatever float is necessary for liquidity and security. But you deploy all of your available funds immediately. So you should immediately be out of money. That's my advice for my kids: is spend all your money.
Good debt.
Just go into hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt and you'll be fine. No, there's going to be about like 18 asterisks after that, explaining how to do it properly. But, but it's going to be part of my inspirational, educational talk. But anyway, so that being said, you look then and say, well, what do I do now? If you're fully deployed, well, you can work with others and deploy their wealth, help them make money while gaining experience and continuing the process. And you keep rotating it through until you have enough that you can have a dynamic process rolling everything through. So as you free up time from initiating and managing these projects, these other ones ripen and become ready. So that's like the best way to look at that would be, say, the 5-year refinance ladder as your projects come ready. That's one of the simplest ways to look at it.
Mhm. And I'll say this too. So if you're a busy person with no time, then maybe that's a good fit for us because we have the time to put in the work.
Yes.
So um, a lot of business professionals or people who have funds, they want to get in real estate, or maybe they don't have the expertise. We're happy to come alongside and partner and educate along the way. So that's one last caveat on that. But the final thing I think that we're looking for, besides connections and partners themselves, and through these connections we want deal flow.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
we do have deal flow in a sense, but you can never have too much. And so I'd say if you have deals here in Windsor, Ontario, off market, we'd love to talk.
We would love to talk because we do have people who are interested, but we don't always have enough deals to keep people satiated.
Right. So for an example, we just finished up a flip and we finished some projects here in Windsor and we couldn't really find as many deals that kind of satisfied our criteria. And so that's why we had to go to the States again. So the more deal flow we have, the more deals we can do here in Windsor, in Detroit, in Cleveland. And so if you have any leads or you're a wholesaler or you're just looking to sell, we're here. We're liquid.
Yeah. Especially if we can throw an ADU in the back.
Yeah.
That's particularly interesting.
Yeah. Is there anything else that we need for 2025 with our goals that we didn't discuss?
I can think of a few non-real estate items, but we'll save that for another time. That covers the majority of it. Honestly, that's most of it.
I'd say too, this is one last thing. The reason why we want to do new builds is because we also want to, one specific person we want to create a new build for is our sister.
Oh, yeah.
So if anyone watches this far into the podcast and sees this, one thing for 2025 is that we really want to create a new build so that she can have a place to live relatively expense free. Yes, new, clean, safe.
Yeah.
And if we can build a 6-plex or an 8-plex or something like that, or buy at least something that we can convert and to create many good units, then she can live relatively rent free. Maybe she'll still be utilities, but we want to take care of her, and so that she can actually move out her own house.
And that's really what it comes down to: is all of it is to create value for those around you. So that's one of the best ways we can, is by first you take care of your own family, take care of yourself, put in your oxygen mask first, and you take care of those around you, and then that's when you have your own household in order, is when you can actually make a substantial difference elsewhere and help expand others. And to the point where we can create the Essex County utopia as soon as we figure out this whole new build thing. Just give us another 70, 80 years if we're alive by then, we should have it moving.
Hopefully give us a year and then we'll have it moving.
Yeah. For the family. I'm talking about the whole utopia project.
Oh, utopia. Utopia takes a little bit.
That's going to take more like a century or so, but we'll start small by looking at 6-unit new builds.
Yeah. And then onwards, upwards from there. Yeah. All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah.
Let's do this again.
Yeah,
and
we
then,
will.
Guys, if you have any other topics you want us to talk about, or you want to just learn in general from us, reach out. We have a Calendly link in our profiles, and you can find us on social media on Instagram. You can find all things REI Instagram as well, at all things REI, and all things REI YouTube channel now.
Yeah, with the
And
shorts and everything.
this one here we're uploading on my personal as well. So you can find us all over online and just reach out when you have any questions or
Yeah,
want
we
to talk.
want to hear what's keeping you busy.
Absolutely. All right. See ya.
Yeah.